Hey guys, Gary here, Gary Swafford of Movie Magic Mesmerize Me and Lord Audric and the Throne of Fire, my novel trying to get published, name of my Facebook group. I said a couple of weeks ago that I was going to take a series of questions on numerous topics on my Facebook groups, on the books that I'm working on, other general questions that people want to ask. Sometimes when you're an administrator of a group, people will private message you question. I'll get email questions. There'll be questions on the threads, pardon me, that I don't really get a chance to answer. And so I put out a post that I was taking questions and that I would do a video to try to answer them. I've got a lot of responses. I actually got quite a few responses in emails, and as well as private messages, and a few on the post itself. I think 30-something questions. Some of them were repeats. Some of them really weren't anything I'm going to address in this video. They were just completely unrelated, but I do have some. I picked the ones I thought were the best, that I get asked the most, that I'm going to try to address, update you on the groups, on my what's going on with my books. There have been some developments, and just to let you know what's going on with all that. And I'll try to get to the rest of the questions, hopefully in another video. And I have some visual aids along the way. So one of them I couldn't find, which made me a little unhappy, but Movie Magic Mesmerize Me is our Facebook movie group. I started a little over 5 years ago. We focus on film. I think what distinguishes us from other Facebook movie groups is that we are strictly focused on cinema. We do not get into, celebrity gossip, politics, religion, the day's current affairs. We're sort of outside of all that, and that's not to be sanctimonious or anything, but I think whenever you start getting into the more gossipy aspects of the film world, the entertainment, then it kind of diminishes and dilutes the purpose of the group. If you're talking about celebrity scandal, then you're not really focusing on film, and that is our primary focus: is the movies, the love of movies, people who make them, cinemas of all kind. There's really no limit. And so Lord Audric and the Throne of Fire is a little bit more open as far as subject matter. It's primarily a book and general arts page. We also do get into our current events a little bit. It's not. It's a little bit looser in that respect. It's a much smaller group than Movie Magic Mesmerize Me. But the great thing about Lord Audric is that it's small but mighty. We just have a few hundred members. In Movie Magic Mesmerize Me, or M4 as we call it, we have thousands of members. It's growing by leaps and bounds all the time. So to get to the questions, and I guess in most instances, people didn't really say whether or not to use their names, so unless somebody I know really well, I won't mention the name. Someone asked me how old the groups are, and do I ever intend to end them. Movie Magic Mesmerize Me, as I said, is a little over 5 years old. We started in August of 2012. Lord Audric is about 3 years old, a little over 3 years old. Ending them, I don't really have any thoughts about ending them. Could I ever see the possibility of it? Yes. If for some reason I didn't have a computer and just for a long time and couldn't get to them, I don't know if I would really end them. I would kind of hate to see them end. Facebook doesn't really let you just end a group, especially if it's of some size like Movie Magic Mesmerize Me is. What they do is, if you try to, and I have a little experience with this, if you try to just delete a group, just shut it down altogether, they will actually try to give it to someone else in the group first for a couple of weeks before they'll shut it down. And I think in the case of Lord Audrick, I mean, that's me. I'm the author of this book, and I don't really have administrators on Lord Audrick. It's pretty much just me and our great members who contribute a lot. And I think if for some reason I were going to leave Movie Magic Mesmerize Me, I would just see about turning it over to someone else. I would really hate to see. We've invested a lot in it over the years. And one of my real goals of it was to get to the point where it could theoretically be independent of me. Like the page would go on even if I didn't post. And it does. There are periods where I have to be off the page for a few days, and the group kind of keeps going. I don't know if it would keep going indefinitely without me. I still feel like I'm a little bit of the engine that's kind of, kind of encouraging things along. There's still that, which I don't mind at all. I love being part of the group. And so that's that one. What is your book about? It's actually books. There's actually two. Lord Audrick and the Throne of Fire, just the short answer to that is because they're big books. They've got a lot of scope. Futuristic, cautionary, what-if fable in which the world has almost completely ended. Mankind is just down to, there's still quite a few people. They are east of the Mississippi, kind of in the southeast region, sort of where I am, even though these boundaries don't exist anymore. We just about killed off the world. There's a small amount of humans remaining, and basically it's fable, so they're animals of the four-legged variety as characters, very definitely, and they basically rise up and take over and enslave mankind, and it goes from there. And there are two books, and I'll get into that a little bit, but this isn't all of them. I've been doing some clearing out lately. These are the manuscripts that were Lord Audrick and the Throne of Fire. I'm actually missing a couple here, a couple of the smaller ones, but all of those, they're very old, as you can tell, and they're full, So Lord Audrick is a very big book, and whenever it's printed out, as you see, it's massive. This is one book. This is Lord Audrick and the Throne of Fire. It's 800 and something computer printed out pages. In the computer, in my Microsoft Word, it is, I think, a little over 700 pages. It's all about formatting. What's going on with it? It's been with a literary agent since late spring, early summer, and it's been submitted to a few houses. We've only heard back from one of them. Apparently this is a much slower process than what I imagined, but apparently that's par for the course. What's become very apparent to me over the summer while I've been visiting book pages, reading articles, listening to people in the publishing industry, the trend now is more towards shorter to mid-length books, especially if you're like me and you're an unknown author. If you're Stephen King, if you're Anne Rice, and you've got a 1,000-page book, there's no problem. But it basically sounds to me like editors at publishing houses won't even look at really big books from unknown authors. So that creates a bit of a dilemma when you have a big giant book like Lord Audrick and the Throne of Fire, the Animal Kingdom Fables. So the agent and I decided to break the book in two. I didn't really have a big problem with this because, it's a lot to ask people to read something that's 600, 700, 800 pages or more, and then there's going to be another book. I love books like that if they're great, which, I'm confident that mine is quite good, or I wouldn't have hung in with it all these years. But, it is a lot to ask people, especially from an unknown author, and I understand that. So, and I think luckily, right in the middle of the book, there's kind of a natural breaking point. There's a place where, yes, this book could end and it could take up, and I really just had to do a little bit of rewriting, just a little tweaking there at the end to kind of, signal that this is the end, but there's also something that's kind of looking forward to the next volume. And so that's what I'm doing now. This week I'm going to be resubmitting the first half of the book, back to the agent, and we're going to go from there. And I've got to redo my synopsis on it. But again, it's just very, very minor. So that's where we are. That's what the books are about, and that's where we are on them. And they are multi-volume. Okay, what's going on with them? Someone said, where did the idea for the books come from? Well, that's a huge question, actually. I've always been fascinated with the idea of role reversal. What if the shoe is on the other foot? What then? What issues and dramas are involved in this, and how are they dealt with? When I was a kid, the Planet of the Apes movies were quite big, and you have in that, and I'm not talking about the ones they've done in recent years. I was a kid a long time ago, and I'm talking about the original ones. When I was very small, these movies were coming out, and to me they were fascinating. Like, it's kind of like the shoe's on the other foot now. Things are different. How does mankind react to this? And that's what I've done. For decades, I tried to write. I started numerous novels, stories, several books, in various states of being unwritten, partially written, half written, in dresser drawers and closets and boxes, And I think that what got me going on this book, Animal Kingdom Fables, was Christopher Rice said one time that one of the things that you must have to carry you through a book is to have an idea, a notion, a conviction that you are obsessed with. What was I obsessed with whenever I finally sat down and wrote and finished a book in the early 2000s? There was a bit of an evangelical trait, fervor going on in the country. This was in the first term of the Bush years of W. And that was very reactionary. To me, it was very backward looking, very judgmental about things. And it occurred to me that, and just in my own life evolution and my own biography and things that I felt were important, that if there's a real true sin in the world, what sin is deliberate cruelty. Whatever its form, however it manifests itself, whether it's physical abuse, violence, verbal abuse, bullying a child, acts of cruelty, saying mean things to people. That's cruelty to animals, cruelty to the environment. Deliberately cruelty is the true sin in the world. And my books focus. There's a story. There's a big story. There's a tale. There's a lot of characters, animals and humans, and that is kind of like the fuel of these books. Is that conviction. So. And also when I was little, this is an interesting anecdote, I tried to find the magazine and I couldn't. When I was very small, I was reading comic books, and one time I came across this comic book. I can't remember the name of it. I want to say it was Eerie, or it was one of those sort of magazine-style black and white comic books, and they had several stories in it. It wasn't colorized. It was all black and white, and one of the stories in it was called The Skin Eaters. And it was just about 4 or 5 pages, and I I got a copy off eBay some years ago, and I was trying to find it, and I couldn't, but maybe in the next video. And Skin Eaters was basically a story. It was a man and his son. They kind of look, and they were on the run. They were trying to escape from something, and apparently, some sort of lizard-like creatures were. I don't know if they were aliens or what, but they had sort of taken over and enslaved these guys, and they had escaped. And I just thought that was fascinating. Humans were the animals, and they were being hunted by these creatures. And what was really fascinating to me, I think I was 8 or 9 years old when I read this for the first time, and what was really fascinating to me was the ending. Um, it doesn't turn out well for the man and his little boy. It turns out very bad. And I think that was the first time that I ever encountered like I guess what you would call a downbeat ending. And, that just really was very powerful. I remember the lizards caught them, and I guess they clubbed them to death. And I remember one of them holding up the little boy, and, he's not dressed, and he's naked, and saying, this one will make, and I actually have a scene like echoing this in the second book. And he's saying, he said, this one will make a nice pair of gloves. And I just really, that was kind of a shocker to me. I think it was 8 or 9, and it was just, I'd never read anything like that before. So that was very evocative and very powerful to me. So that's not really what the book's about or exactly where they came from, but that was one of the things that informed me. Politics on the page. Okay. All right. Okay, I remember this one. This is a little bit off topic. I don't really like being political or talking about politics on social media. If you look back on my history, I was very happy with the 8 years of Obama. But if you look back, I haven't really commented. There's certain issues, that I'm quite passionate about and involved in. But I'll just say very quickly and move on from this. I think we're in very bad shape right now, and we better damn well get busy and do something about it to change it, to reverse this really quick. And it doesn't really have to do with red and blue, Republican, Democrat. Uh, yes, I'm a progressive Democrat. I always have been. I always will be. The life I have no choice. I vote in my interest. I consider myself working class. And so it's just we cannot stay on this course. I think we're just really in bad shape and headed for disaster. I really believe that. It's not just like, well, I don't like this guy, he's not my party. It's way beyond that. Trust me, if this was a Democrat in the White House right now, I might even be more scared because it just really wouldn't make sense to me, It's just like, and I have lots of friends and family, who are conservative Republicans, so I understand that. Olive, okay, and I'm not sure, I don't want to mispronounce your name. Olive asked me to talk about my favorite authors of the past and current. Okay, well, this is a big question for me. Favorite contemporary authors, Anne Rice, who is my best friend. I've talked about her numerous times over the years online. Of course, every Anne Rice book, her son Christopher Rice, of course. I talk about my favorite contemporary authors on Lord Audrick quite a bit and on my Facebook timeline. I love Joyce Carol Oates. I love Margaret Atwood. Colm Tóibín, the Irish writer, is a big favorite of mine. Jonathan Lethem is a writer that I like very much. Donna Tartt is somebody I wish she would write more, write faster, Donna. Glenn David Gould, fantastic author, and if you haven't read Carter Beats the Devil and Sunnyside, go out and get thee to Amazon right now and get those books. And he also has a memoir coming out next summer. I think it's supposed to be published on my birthday next summer. So I just know he's written these books for me. Even though it's just his memoir, so probably not. Michael Chabon, his wife Ayelet Waldman are writers that, it's a long list. and writers of the past. You know what I've done over the years. There are certain writers that I go back to continuously, like every, well, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. I'll go through a cycle where I will reread Henry James. I will reread Virginia Woolf. I will revisit Edith Wharton. Um, People like M.R. James, I like a lot. Algernon Blackwood, Sheridan Le Fanu. There's numerous writers, like that who I will go back. Thomas Mann is another one. I'm forgetting names, but every few years, I'll go through another Thomas Mann phase. I'm about to start reading Magic Mountain again. Next year I might be back into Virginia Woolf and reread a few of her novels, some of her essays, maybe another biography. There's the 19th century writers I like a lot. From the Jane Austen to the Brontes to the great Russian